All right, let's move on to the 2010s because I think this will be probably a bulk of our discussion, mainly because I just think it's probably the decade that we've seen the most psychological
There is a
horror movies.
lot of like psychological
There's a
shit in this.
ton. We can quickly breeze past the Get Outs, the Hereditaries, the Lighthouses, the Midsummers. If you guys want to hear us dive into Jordan Peele, Ari Aster, Robert Eggers, just go to last week's episode. We had a really great discussion on the three of them, and obviously the three of them kind of fall more towards the psychological horror. Jordan Peele can fall more towards science fiction horror a little bit. Robert Eggers could fall towards folk horror a little bit more, but I think they all kind of sit within that psychological horror. First shout has to be Black Swan for me. I think of all of the horror movies, and again, if you don't consider it horror, that's perfectly fine. But Black Swan for me is just such a devastating dissection of anxiety, the consequences of pressure, the consequences of being in a constant state of panic and fear that you're not good enough or that there's someone outperforming you.
George, we didn't say
It's,
Perfect Blue as well. Like that could easily be mentioned. Don't you think?
I mean, psychological for sure, but I would say psychological thriller.
I think Perfect Blue is like. I guess so. But I think Perfect Blue is like.
It could
Black
be
Swan.
frightening in its themes and how it like kind of resonates with you and makes you think. But I don't. I would never tell someone who's looking for a horror movie to watch Perfect Blue.
Yeah, I guess so.
You know, definitely a good shout though. That is definitely psychological for sure. But yeah, my shout is Black Swan. But just rattling off a few. Tyler, please watch It Follows. I'm begging you to watch it.
Oh yeah, that I'll be watching that
I
this
might
week at
watch
some
it
point.
tomorrow. You know,
I might. Oh God, I might watch it tonight when I get home from.
I
film
saw the
festival.
devil. I saw the devil. Most definitely.
Absolutely.
Kotoko, George, I know you've seen that. I
Oh,
love
that was Kotoko was just that was literal just devastation.
You don't
It
get
is-
more psychological than that. Like,
No,
realistically, do you know what I mean?
that movie made me more anxious and just more paranoid than like any film and not in like a traditional sense of like paranoid where like okay, I'll bring up The Descent again. Like The Descent is like
Yeah.
paranoia and anxious because of like this lurking darkness, this fear of the unknown. This is just anxiety and paranoia just because the depression on screen is just so palpable and it is so infectious that like it puts your mind in the same like state that the main character Coco is in, and it's such a brutal experience. That was a tough watch, I will say.
Yeah. I'll also say very controversial one. Darren Aronofsky's Mother with Jennifer Lawrence was a really, really controversial one at the time.
Do you guys remember when Cam watched that accidentally?
No? Did he try and watch Bong Joon-ho's Mother?
Yeah, he thought he was watching, I think, Bong Joon-ho's Mother, and he was like just watching Darren Aronofsky's Mother.
That's funny, man.
Which
so
is just
weird.
jokes.
It's such a Cam thing to do as well.
So fucking funny. Yeah, I'll toss again, this is more like supernatural monster horror, but I'll toss A Quiet Place on that list. I think that has a lot of psychological elements just from, what the events of a post-apocalyptic world can do to you, especially one that you have to just constantly be living in fear and in isolation.
Kill List.
Kill List, absolutely.
Most definitely. Yeah, Kill List is
definitely just a wild viewing experience. I think I texted you this right after an ending I absolutely did not foresee.
Yeah, Kill List is very psychological. I think also one that I'd recommend both of you watch as well that I think I like more than most people, but it's Marrowbone. So it's got
you've been telling me that for a while.
George McKay, Anya Taylor-Joy, Mia Goth, like a really good cast. Really, really interesting film. Like quite scary at points. Most definitely psychological horror thriller. That's a really, really interesting watch. I think it's quite underseen as well, especially for the cast. You know what I mean? Like Mia Goth, Anya Taylor-Joy, George McKay, like three of the most exciting young actors working today. I think it's really underseen and undervalued. I think that definitely counts.
You've been telling me to watch that. It's funny. That's like one horror movie that I just always go to press play on, and I just never commit for some reason.
It's a good, really. I think it's your sort of film, to be honest.
Yeah,
like, the way
I
that it
definitely
plays
need to
out.
watch it. Seth, have you seen The Wailing? Na Hung Jin's The Wailing.
No, mate, that's I've been about to press play on that about a million times. I've never watched it.
That's a sublime. Like I think my 4 out of 5 stars is like disrespectful. Like I think that's too low. Like I need to
Yeah,
rewatch
I've
it. I
heard
think
it's
it'll
good.
go up to a 4.5 or a 5. But that's again like that's a little like I'll compare that to Zodiac maybe, where it's like a very psychological kind of mystery.
Yeah.
And it's one of those movies where you're kind of diving into the psyche of this detective while also kind of worried about what he's trying to uncover. So there's a lot of elements that just play into like your mind running amok while watching this movie.
Have
Seth,
you guys
and
seen Green Room, A24's Green
Yep.
Room?
Yep, that's a disturbing movie.
That's
Yeah.
really good. I really like that. I think that runs in a psychological mirror.
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart is so good as the villain in that.
Yeah.
I really like.
That's like
Tyler, have you seen Green Room?
I have not.
You should definitely watch it. It's good.
That's a wild movie. Just that's another just straight anxiety for fucking
Yeah,
hour and a half.
That is literally like a panic attack for like 90
Yeah.
minutes. It's crazy. And there was one of like the first. It was like around the time when A24 really get like 2015 when they did like the like distribute The Witch and stuff like that. When they're really kind of pushing the horror, I think it's a really interesting film.
Crazy movie. Seth, I know you've seen Tigers Are Not Afraid.
Yeah, that's
would
like
you
fantasy.
consider? Yeah,
I
that's
guess.
more of like the letterbox synopsis says a dark fairy tale, and I think that's a perfect way of putting it. But I think it has enough psychological elements.
It's got a lot. It's like coming of age, psychological fantasy, like
it's
horror.
another one of those
it's
like
got a lot of it.
weird blends of horror that I absolutely
definitely.
adore. I don't know if I would consider 10 Cloverfield Lane psychological horror, but I think you do because
I could see it.
Yeah, it's another one of those movies that just like isolation, stuff like that, and that's obviously just something that lasts, just leaves a lasting impression on you after you watch it. And then John Goodman just puts on such a performance in that movie.
That's a really good film. I need to rewatch that again actually because John Goodman's so amazing in that. Like, really fantastic.
Yeah, he bangs in that movie. And then another A24 movie, It Comes at Night. The one with
the Joel Edgerton one.
Yeah,
is that the
Joel
Edgerton
Edgerton,
one? Yeah,
Christopher Abbott, Trey Edward Schultz. That's a fantastic movie. Seth, have you seen The Babadook?
Yeah, so I like it. That's most definitely psychological. I think that's all about like the mom's mental health and stuff. I like it. I don't love it. I think that's definitely runs under the realm. I think the same with like It Follows as well. It runs under that same proximity. It Follows, Midsummer, Babadook, very much psychological horror at the core. Not huge on Babadook, but I do like it.
Yeah, it's very like Hereditary-esque, where it's like it's psychological horror, but it's the reasons the psychological horror aspects of these movies play out is because of the supernatural horror that's like the forefront of the movie, which
absolutely
just, again, I just think makes for such an interesting experience. Anything else from the 2010s that were kind of, I feel
nothing
like
great. I'll
all
be
of
honest.
the big ones, everything else is just kind of low rated. So we can tackle the 2020s very quickly. I don't think there's been too many psychological horror movies.
Like I would never. Talk to me.
Yeah, Talk to Me. Supernatural psychological horror. I would never consider Nope a psychological horror. That's more supernatural and science
fiction. Have you guys
fiction.
seen The Night House with Rebecca Hall?
No, you keep telling me to watch that.
The Night House with Rebecca Hall is so fucking good.
You keep on mentioning that, and I need to watch it.
I have an interesting question for both of you. How many films in the 2020s Letterboxd do you have a 4-star or higher?
Oh, you want me to get this number?
I have 7. That's not great. Yeah.
From 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023, you have 7 movies rated
I have 7
or higher.
No, I have 7 at a 4-star, and then 1 at a 5-star, and then no 4.5s, and then all lower after that.
From the whole decade, this entire decade.
Yeah.
For horrors?
For just horror?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Just
I thought
horror,
you meant
not in general. No.
Jesus Christ, I thought you meant everything in general. I have
No, I just thought I'd have more because I like horror, but I realize there's not many I've loved recently, to be honest.
I have 12 out of 4 star and 2 out of 4.5 star.
Okay,
None
Tyler,
of,
what about you?
no horror at a 5 star from this decade so far. Interesting. I really thought you meant just every movie in general at first.
No.
I
I
almost
just thought
pissed myself.
I had a feeling I'd loved more horror, but like, there's not that many horrors because I like Bones and all again. Like, would you really consider that a
wouldn't-
horror film? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But psychological, I think the best one for me in the past couple of years is probably the Night House. The Records, the Night House from 2020. It's on, I think it's on Hulu where you guys are at. If you're in the US, I think it's on Disney Plus here. That's really fantastic. Like, if you consider it a horror, I think that's really, really great. I know George didn't like this as much as I did. I don't think His House, the immigration one from Netflix, I really like that. But then again, like the psychological horror, like there's really not much to choose from for me in the 2020s.
Yeah,
If you guys have
not
got
a
any
lot from
things.
this decade. I mean, I can mention Possessor, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you I enjoyed that movie. I didn't really like it too much. I think Host is for sure psychological horror. It's
like found footage though, isn't it?
yeah,
At the same
it's
time,
it's
you know
like
what I
the webcam found footage type of film.
mean? Yeah, yeah.
Which again, like I think any, I don't know, I feel like any horror movie that just kind of puts me in like a very paranoid state, I can like consider psychological horror.
Yeah, it's very it's a weird one to kind of manage because
Yeah.
there's so many different ways to go about it. I agree.
Like even like, would you consider Skinamarink psychological horror or just trash
Yeah.
horror?
Well, I mean, I didn't like it, to be fair. I think it's probably like found footage psychological, same as like a Host, for example.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Kind of
yeah,
works the
but
same way.
from this
What
decade,
about Barbarian? Yeah, I think so. Do you not think?
I don't know if I would consider that psychological horror.
Well, I mean, in the elements wise, it's very much about how others treat other people. I wonder what that's down as on Google, actually. Okay, it just says
I would
American
consider
horror.
psychological horror. I think.
I think I would. In terms of what it has to say, the way it makes you feel, I think I consider, if so, Barbarian would be like. Actually, what I forgot to tell you this. I forgot to log on Letterboxd. I went to my cousin's the other day, and she was like, "Oh, have you got any horrors that like aren't scary?" Because she hates horror films, but like are fun. And I was like, "Oh, Barbarian, that's perfect." So I've actually seen Barbarian like 3 times now. I really, really like it. I have like a 4-star. I really enjoy it. I think Barbarian would be like very top of my list in terms of like best horrors in the 2020s, but also psychological horrors if we are considering that as well.
Also, Watcher.
Oh, Watcher.
Oh, yeah, you guys love.
Yeah, I love Watcher. What a film. What a film. This is not classified as a horror on Letterboxd, but I'm gonna toss out, actually it is. I'm gonna toss out We're All Going to the World's Fair.
I need to rewatch that.
To
be honest.
That one, I don't know why. I mean, I have a few mutuals that are high on it, but I have a few that are also very low on it, and the average Letterboxd rating is 3.1, but I don't know. For some reason,
It's a bit all over the place, actually. To be fair, the
it's
graph
wild. It's just such a, it's such a crazy like coming of age.
Wow,
film.
people, look, Jesus, man, I've got guys who rate like a 4.5, 5, and also like half stars and ones.
Yeah, same. It's very
really
all over the
interesting.
place. But that one left an impression on me for sure. I really enjoyed that one. But we could wrap up that, little friendly discussion on psychological horror, which, like I said, is my personal favorite subgenre of horror. Seth, what's your favorite subgenre of horror?
I'd probably say the same thing, to be fair. Like, there's different pieces of horror that I appreciate. Like, I appreciate body, I appreciate science fiction horror, and there's always standouts like a Titan or The Thing or whatever. But I'd say on the surface, I probably prefer something that's like psychological, most of them bearing on being thrillers as well, that kind of lens, like a Kotoko, like a Kill List, for example, for the 2010s, very much that kind of element. So I'd probably say psychological is kind of where I'm at most of the time in terms of what I would reach for, I would say.